All right, I've started the
Yeah.
recording. By the way,
Meow, meow.
meow
Hello.
meow dog. Hello. We are two noobs trying to learn stuff.
Well, yeah.
Specifically Rust.
Yeah. We're doing grid or something. Matrix.
Yeah, so
Grid.
we're doing grid with Druid UI. Let's see where it's at by just trying to compile it. Linear algebra. Run. All right. So I'm just eating toast at the same time.
I'm making breakfast.
What's for breakfast today?
Usually.
Oh yeah. Do you ever put like honey in your muesli?
I've tried it. It doesn't really go that well.
Good.
Like, honey's a strong flavor. And it can take over the flavor of other things.
Hmm. I guess we should write some higher level objectives.
We wanna input a matrix.
Yeah.
The input boxes and render it. But from what I remember, I think a good next step is to look at the game of life example of how that displays a 2D array of data.
That's a good idea.
Because yeah, we ran into the problem of when we built the UI.
Yeah.
We didn't have the data, and that's kind of weird. How do they go about building a game of life display if you don't have the game of life data?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's find main. So the data that they use. Oh, interesting. They have this grid. I think that's their data structure. Yeah. Here we go. So their grid is the app state, which if we go back to main. Yeah. So we see they create a new mutable grid. And they launch. Oh, app data is different to grid. So what's app data? Are you there? I can't hear you. If you are there. Are you there?
Hello.
Hello?
Okay. Yeah. For some reason, it disconnected the mic when I plugged my headphones.
That's all right. So there's this app data struct. Which is separate to this grid.
What is a grid?
So a grid is just an arcvec of balls. And I was just trying to see how it's related to this app data, which seems to be the app state that they use in the actual.
Is it a single vec or a 2D?
It's just a single vec of balls.
Interesting.
Which makes sense. You can just serialize the game of life grid to be linear and not having to be 2D.
Yeah, I guess we can do that as well.
We could do that, yeah. But the app state is different. Oh, it takes a grid. Okay, there we go. So if we look at app data itself, it takes one of these. And also a bool, and also a pause, and also a speed. So how did they start populating the data?
So that should be in launch, I think.
Well, they populate it initially with this, and the grid itself, when they construct it with new, that's not what I wanted. Yeah, when they must have some impl of grid, something for grid, sorry, or impl grid. Is there an impl grid? Yeah. So they just initialize it to the pool size. Where's pool size defined? Okay, here we go. It's 40 by 40. So 1600. Alright. But the real question that we have is not necessarily... So we know that app state needs to be initialized via the launch. And that's on app launcher, which takes the fn, that impl widget, and... Oh no, that's make widget, sorry. It takes the window. That has the fn impl widget. So make widget, how does that work? Let me just clear all my bookmarks and go to make widget. So same structure that we've seen for widgets. It's returning an implementation of a widget T, in this case, that has app data. Now, how does it actually populate it? The thing is, there's no input, right? All of it's kind of dynamic from the initial state. And
by input, you mean the app state data?
Sorry, there is. Like, I remember that when you click on it, it actually does stuff. So there is input in terms of clicking.
Oh, user input, I see.
Yeah, user input.
Yeah, like you can pause it and change the frame rates and things.
Yeah. So that's me clicking this section and doing stuff. And there is like, yeah, clear and changing the frame rate. So there's 3 inputs potentially, or 4.
And they should mutate the app data.
Yeah. So let's see if we can identify those inputs. Yeah, so we see the resume, pause buttons here. We see this game of life widget, which is being passed into this FlexChild widget, with FlexChild, which if we just try and see what that returns again, that's returning a self. So it's returning a flex, but it takes as a child the widget T. And that's what we're seeing here. This game of life widget is something that returns a widget T.
And just remind me, this make widget, that's what's being constructed at the beginning?
Yes.
Like when it constructs the app? Yeah.
So in the main...
this doesn't have access to the data. It has to use lenses and things, I guess.
Yeah, so it's all reliant on the app state because it's bound that T when... I guess, yeah, based on this signature.
So we want to see something that references appdata.grid. Like, is there a lens for that?
In the make widget? Yeah.
Yeah. Is grid even mentioned?
So we see app data pause, app
down
data
there.
grid. Yeah.
Yeah. So this button, lenses on grid. Oh, it's for the clear. It mutates grid. So its value doesn't depend on grid, but when you click it, it has the mutation of grid.
Because it's taking this lambda function, which gives us data.
The data, yeah.
And how is it specifically getting the data that's related to grid because of this lens?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so the lens transforms app data into the grid field.
So should I be looking at this sort of stack call of functions, like from the last to the first? Because
Well,
this,
this isn't what we're after, because this is still a simple, like, single UI element. We want to see the dynamic nature of grid, where it's like any size. So is there another reference to grid, one that displays it?
well, it has a widget, so I would imagine that it would be in here.
Yeah, that makes
Schema
sense.
widget. So if you just look at the references to this,
And this has an import widget, which will do all the things.
exactly, and it takes the
Yeah.
update. So
it seems like making your own widgets to do more complex stuff is the way to go with this framework.
and then you can have the implementations for these methods: event, lifecycle, update, layout. And if we just like focus on this section, if we just look at, say, the grid areas underneath here, so it really is data that has grid. So it's the data.grid references that refer to it inside this widget. And yeah, we can see here that mouse down event, if the mouse button is left, drawing through, and do some stuff. And it seems to be mutating the data grid value. And let's just like think back to like what we want to do, in that we want some way to mutate the UI.
But ideally reusing existing widgets. So not so low level like this where it's directly editing it. We want to be using like label texts and text inputs.
Yeah, that's right.
So this doesn't actually do that, but it's still good to see how it deals with a complex data structure.
Yeah, and like let's not finish. Let's keep going, because the way that we can see this UI being constructed is that this entire grid is like part of a flex column, which gets
we still haven't seen how it shows the grid. Those were just the events of how it like updates the grid.
Oh, that's what I'm getting to, because this whole layout system says that there's a flex column that has this, and it has this, and it has this. So this entire widget is this section here. And what we're doing is we're adding to this flex child, which takes a impl widget t. So that implementation of game of life widget is returning a widget app state, I would say, and we should be able to see that impl widget app data. So it is implementing this specific app state for this widget. That's important. And then it's giving into it the initial values of the struct. But once it's given that, we have something that has implemented widget app state, and that's all we need, really. In terms of the display, okay, so paint sounds like the draw method that would happen maybe every cycle or something. If we just modify this, we might be able to see something different, like for row in grid size. Let's just half the grid size to see that it's only going to do half of the screen for this paint. So I'm just going to divide this by 2, see what happens. Oh my god, what's going on? And this should happen every frame, in theory. Oh, right. I should probably do that.
Mhm.
And run this again. While that's going though, we still need to identify an example that find example that reuses like label and text box, etc.
Mm-hmm.
I think flexbox is an example of that, but yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
So yeah, it's only that top left corner.
yeah. And that makes sense because we've divided the width and height by 2.
Mm-hmm.
So that seems to suggest this is the draw method on every frame. And it gets the data, which contains the grid. And for every row in the grid size and every col, let's get the position, grid pos. What's grid pos? It's just a row and col position, which we can put into this struct, and then if the data.grid pos. So does
So
this? Yeah,
that's interesting.
it's taking this grid pos instead of just an implicit. And
What's the impl of grid?
impl of grid.
Does it have some special thing for?
Like indexing or what's the right terminology when you
square bracket index. Maybe search for grid in case there's a separate impl for it.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Index, here we go.
Impl index.
Nice.
There you go.
So we can override. Yeah, that's the thing that I was trying to tell you. You said that there's no operator overloading in Rust.
I said there's no overloading, function overloading.
Okay, but there is operator
But I suppose
overloading.
there's. So this isn't. This is operator overloading.
Yeah, and I think if you
Rust
impl
has
add,
operator overloading. Yeah.
if you impl add for something, you also get the operator overloads.
That's very interesting that it has operator overloading, but it doesn't have function overloading. You can't have 2 functions of the same name that take different types, as far as I think. Or am I wrong about that? Maybe I'm wrong about that too.
Maybe. Yeah, I'm not sure. Hold on, it's 1 sec, just checking. Important stuff. Okay. Yeah, that is interesting that we can do that. If we go back to the... So we learned that we can operator overload.
Yeah, I'm quite wrong about that. And we saw partial equality as well.
Partial equality, where do we see that?
Keep going.
Wait. Let me just copy this as an example of operator overloading the indexing. Partial. Oh, yeah. So partial equality, is that just like less than... Yeah, okay. Not equal to.
Oh, does it mean not? I don't know.
It seems to be not equal.
They're overloading the EQ function.
Yeah.
I thought, I'm not sure what partial equality means. I guess it's different to inequality.
What's partial equality?
Let's see the definition. Like, what functions does it have? That will tell us.
Equal and not equal. Okay. Oh, so you don't have to do all of them.
So let's see EQ. The first paragraph ends on EQ.
The first paragraph ends in EQ?
We go up to the right, down, there. Yeah, what's the difference? Is EQ... I mean, yeah, you think EQ would have the same things. Oh, did it go to that?
Yeah, it seemed to go to
I thought it'd be another trait.
no.
Okay. It's capitalized. Weird.
Yeah.
Oh, down on the navigation bar under traits,
Oh,
there's EQ. That's macro. There's traits EQ.
Pub trait is a inherited from partial EQ.
But why?
I think
Okay.
partial EQ has like NE and EQ, whereas EQ just has EQ.
No, it's got both. It
Oh wait,
inherited from
that's
partial
true.
EQ.
That's true. Yeah.
So that's weird. Okay.
Anyway, yeah. So, yeah, let's just keep looking at this so we can see that the grid gets this position,
Hmm.
and then if it's got that position, we.
That's pretty cool.
So the fact that we can do this is because it's implemented partial EQ, right?
No, index.
No, but it indexes the thing.
There's no equality happening here.
But when you do if and this thing, and it's giving us what back?
A bull.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, you're right. The actual thing's a bull. Yeah.
Yeah, the data inside the grid is a bull.
Yeah. Sorry, you're right. Create a point, and then create a rect, and then that's where they color in the rect based on some color scheme. So yeah, this is the draw. If you look at the layout, it takes a layout CTX, box constraints, data. And really they need just the box constraints because all of these are underscored. And I think we saw what those box constraints were. This is like the flex box values that it calculates based on how you've constructed the flex row, flex col stuff. And what it's saying is like get the max value from the constraints currently on the widget. Min size is max size dot height. So this is not just a value, this is an actual object that you can reference height on and get the min of them and then return a size. So we return size from layout, and I think we had a look at size, which is that Kerbo thing. Kerbo size, which I don't have in my thing at the moment.
I think it's just width and height.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so it just gives back a width and height size layout.
I wonder how that gets used.
Yeah, like, is that so that... I remember when we looked at it, it was like it starts to build the box by the flex by sort of calculating all the different components and then sort of expanding it as it goes through by getting...
That's what flex does, but this layout is like part of Druid, so Druid is calling layout. And what does Druid do with that?
So if we look at the widget, we should see layout. Compute layout.
I guess.
Yeah.
An easy way to find out is just make it crash in layout and see the stack trace. We'll see who's calling it what line.
Okay. So I can panic inside layout.
Yep.
Oh no!
No.
And I should. And run.
Since when do you have a lambda on your terminal?
I changed the theme.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm using fish, which is cool, but you know what's really bad about it? It can't recognize the path variable. Like, there's
What do you mean recognize?
So by default, in order to get like your path environment variable, which has links to say cargo and all this stuff that you normally use in Bash, You need to install like custom things to make it recognize it because fish
Is
has
this for autocomplete or
no. This is just for fish to get it to
to make the path variable work at all?
Yes.
Does it use something else?
I haven't dug further, but it's not by default
'Cause-
recognizing my path
wow.
variable. I know it's.
Wow.
I mean, it's great that I get all this sort of cool stuff, but like, I don't have reverse control R. Like, I can't do reverse search anymore.
That's. I wonder what the point of fish is if it's not making life nicer.
Fish reverse search. They must have it. I just haven't. And while this is happening, what am I doing? Compiling this.
Add a semicolon after panic.
Panic. Yes, thanks. Where is main again? There we go.
Have you used ZSH?
Yeah. I use that on my normal machine, which is pretty good. I mean, I don't notice anything
it has
different.
it, but it's a different key.
Control R. What? Or is that? What is it? I didn't read it properly. What's CR?
I think that means Control R.
Oh yeah, that's what he's saying. Is it's originally, but what is it now?
Okay.
Oh, a lot of people are saying that it's missing.
Okay. So the undiscoverable is just about existing behavior.
Yeah, let me just go to the bottom and see. Lol, 21st of May. They still.
Oh, it was almost the magic number.
That's of this year. They still don't have it. Fish.
Lol. May, Jesus.
Like, come on.
Fish is way old. I remember fish being mentioned when we were in uni, right? I think.
Yeah. Anyway, it's pretty sad that I can't do that. It's pretty sad. Anyway, stack trace. Probably need that.
Reverse search is the one where you enter that mode, and as you type, it then matches on substrings of past things you've written.
That's right. Yeah, I use that all the time.
Does it have like prefix search? Like as you type, you can.
Yeah. It does have that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I only use that. I don't use the reverse search.
Oh, okay.
But no, reverse search is still. They should have it.
Okay, so we can see that we panicked at main, and then we wind up the stack.
Got to ignore the first 14 things.
How do you know that?
It's because every time we panic, the first 11 things, I just panic.
Right.
Panic stack trace.
Okay. It's just interesting that you remember that number.
Because it's terrible.
Okay.
There's so much just overhead to panicking.
So we can see that core RS is calling that. And this is... Oh, can I just click this? Oh. What is it doing? Is this opening visual? What is this?
What the hell? Oh, shit.
Oh.
Look at that.
I don't want to open Visual Code, but thank you.
It's your default handler for RS files, I guess.
If
you make it Sublime Text, then Sublime Text will just take you there in the current tab that you're in.
So if I go to this location, open just like this, and then go...
Yeah, see, they're all... Yeah.
Open with other.
Yeah.
And then...
I've never seen Mac's application association interface. So it looks like it's identical to... Whoa.
No, don't worry about that. Did that... it's not a default associating. How do I default associate? Change default.
Maybe, text editor, Mac.
And...
Yeah, you heard about iOS?
Sorry?
You heard about iOS?
I've heard about iOS. Like, what about it?
That they let you change the default browser and file manager? Browser and something.
Yeah.
Email. Browser and email.
Yeah. Right.
They now let you change the default.
Oh, I don't really use iOS, so.
Which is news because it's like they didn't let you do that before, and they still don't let you do that for like all the other things.
Info. So I need to go to the info thing. So we go get info. Open with.
Okay.
Change all.
I think you need to change first and then. So you can set it for a single file. That's kind of crazy. No.
What?
Wait. It said the unarchiver. You saw that?
Oh.
It was saying the unarchiver, but no, it's okay. It's okay.
Okay.
See the recording. It totally said the unarchiver. It didn't work. What happened?
No,
it went back.
No, it did.
Wait, it did work. Why are the icons still? Why is it still? Okay.
Who cares?
Anyway, it's opening new windows, so that's kind of meh. I think you need to do Sublime Text -W if you want it to resume the same window.
I don't think I can put command line arguments though.
No, you would need to inject your own script and stuff. Yeah.
All good. I'm not that worried about it. So 14, and then we go core. No, it opened in the same file. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh.
All right. So we can see that there's this layout implementation for data widget. Widget pod. So the main where I wrote panic, at this point it's a widget pod.
So this widget pod is because it's inside a flex.
Yeah. So the flex is calling its children's layout.
And anyway, let's see what it does with that size.
Yeah, let me just save this. Sorry, I'll just save this to.
Sorry, I guess I was wrong. It was actually it wasn't Druid.
This is 2020-06-30.
Yeah, once you're inside another widget, you're completely up to that other widget, whatever happens to you.
Well, what did you want to say? Sorry.
What does what happens to size? Where does it go?
You mean like after the layout?
Yeah. So there's size.
So you want to see what calls layout?
No. Just follow size. Wait. So we're in widget pod now, right?
Yeah, we are.
And that called the inner layout.
Yeah.
That's got size. And it's just returning it. Okay, yeah, so yeah, we want to follow it up.
So yeah, it gets it to the flex, which makes sense because that goes through its children. And what it's calling layout, so we just what line was that? Here we go. For 584. Here we go. Yeah, so it gets its child widget layout, and it gets its child size, and the reason why Flex is doing that is because it has like a widget pod of children that it iterates over, gets its size with the layout, and then it calculates based on all the sizes, the desired values.
Okay. I have a bit of experience in this space.
Yeah.
I think I can elaborate on. So in Chromium view code, you've got layout function, which you call on views. That they're like widgets. It's basically the same model. There's actually a lot of similarities here. You call layout on, and that's meant to have it set the size of all its children. But we have a separate function called calculate preferred size, and that's where it doesn't mutate anything. It just computes the size that it wants to be based on its children and everything. So if you have a flex that has like 3 images in it, it'll compute the size of those images and add them up to in the row or the column, whichever way it's aligned, and return the size that it would like to be. And this layout function seems to be doing both. It seems to both be laying out and returning the size that it used for that layout.
Is that because you're seeing this set, that it's actually doing the setting, but also
I'm seeing the call to layout as being assigned into like child size, which just says like this is the size of that child.
Yeah, and as I was mentioning before, like we can see it expand the major direction by the child size as it's calculating it. It's actually growing this major flex direction, so that is actually giving us the entirety of the flex size by iterating through each child.
And I remember another important point is that call to layout.
Yep.
The BC, what does BC stand for again? Box constraints.
Box constraints, yeah.
They were being given a loosened box constraint.
Yeah.
I remember up above child BC equals direction constraints loosen BC. They're telling the children, hey, layout, and you have all the free room that you like. So that's it wanting to know how much is space does this child want to take up by removing all limitations. So yep. It's really just get preferred size is what they're doing there. It's a bit unfortunate that it does full layout because that's a mutation that's going to set all this stuff. So yep. I think it's better to have them split out, but here they've got them combined into the one.
Okay, I didn't see that. So basically, the loosened BC is just a box constraint which doesn't have any constraints, but it's
if you go to that definition.
Yeah.
I remember it just sets max to be
the entire thing.
Calls yep.
And is that still in the context of a section in the flex, or is that the entire UI as in like screen width and screen height?
That's a good question. My guess is that all its children are operating in the coordinate space of the flex. So it's probably relative to the flex.
Yeah, so if we actually looked at the UI, it's panicking. But if we remove this, it would be, in terms of the grid, just that section potentially that has the game of life.
Wait a sec. I just saw something that made me think I'm going on the wrong path. Can we go back to loosen? It's actually keeping the max and removing the min. Now I'm very confused. It kept the max, so it's still constrained, but it's saying that you can be as small as you like. Okay.
Yeah, so size 0 seems to be something very specific to some special magic variable, and that just says that maybe the min and max is relative, so it's not actually position, it's actually just a length, sort of calculation.
Yeah, this would be talking about width and height. Yeah, we wouldn't talk about size, position.
And what would it even mean to have min that's not 0? Like,
you have to be at least this big, I guess.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to think contextually what would be an example of that.
In CSS, there's min width. You can set the minimum width of things.
Right.
So I guess like you could have a div with some stuff in it, but like for layout purposes, you want it to take up at least this much space, and it's allowed to grow if it needs to.
I
but
see.
It must take up at least this much for the purpose of like moving other things around the page.
Right. So like it sets it at that level of size, initially because you've set the min size to be. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So we can see that Flex obviously operates on this widget pod thing, where the widget pod controls the nested children related to each widget. And the question here is that this Flex is a specific type of widget, but it has this weird, interesting nested. I think Flex is something separate in its own. Like we won't be writing like Flex code, even though we're writing a grid. We're just going to be translating it into a Flex that has all this widget pod stuff. But it looks like the implementers of Druid kind of want their users to not make something that touches widget pod or whatever. It's more just like, here, make your widget, use the Flex to wrap all that stuff up, and we could go down that route to write a different thing for grid, but I think the simplest operation that we can do is just translate something like a matrix into a Flex. So
Yeah.
Is this enough to sort of go back to our initial problem?
In terms of layout, I'm satisfied. Now we know what size means. It's
Yeah.
just for the parent to be able to like read the child's preferred size for things and position other children accordingly. In terms of creating like nested UI, we still haven't seen a good example of that. You said the Flex example had something like that?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, this is the example here, and this is quite convoluted in that it does. Let's just like render it, see what it actually gives us.
Yeah. We should start with the app data to see if it's got anything like particularly dynamic in there. If it's just static
I don't
stuff,
think it
then...
does. Yeah, I don't think it does. Like, what you really want to look for is arc. This is that example, which there was actually more stuff.
Yeah.
There's no real arc.
They're all pretty fixed things.
So maybe if we look at the examples again. So I'm just going to search for arc in here.
I was about to suggest that, yeah.
So we've got this one. Nope.
Game of Life, Lens.
Oh, no, they don't really have many examples.
Game of Life is the only one.
Yeah.
Oh no. You know what would be the other example? Is that font editor.
Yeah, that's true. What was it called again?
I can't remember. It was linked off the Druid page. It was like, this is an example of Druid.
Oh, Rune Bender. That's right.
Rune Bender.
Yeah.
Someone watches Avatar.
Yeah.
For the record, I have not watched Avatar. I just know it gets references.
That's right. I haven't watched it either.
Yeah, one day.
It's like, I don't know. It's not anime enough for me. If that makes sense.
Not anime enough?
Like it's.
Yeah, there's a kind of Western anime.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of the sort of Western anime.
Shira is very much in that camp, where it's like definitely anime inspired, but obviously Western.
Right. All right, so here's their one, and they have a data which has an arc font object. And this, so this is a more complex struct which is embedded in the app state. Which has workspace, which has arc,
hash map.
Hash map.
Okay, hash map is exactly the kind of thing, because it's a dynamic size.
Yeah. So if we follow the make UI pattern, we want to see where is this hash map related to session or open glyphs. Open glyphs. Okay, I don't see open glyphs at all in the make UI. So it must be
make UI. glyph grid could be where it is.
Oh yeah. Wait, is there a oh, so there's a grids.rs somewhere? Where is that? Widgets, okay. So they have their own widgets.
Oh.
But we wanted to see not just like the usage of arc hash map, but also usage of inside a widget like text box and reusing
exactly
stuff. So if we just look in here, oops, for I don't know. Let's look for text box. Hey, there is something in there. Editable label. And if we look at the text box, we can see that it
like this is what we want. We want an editable label.
Yeah, and look at this. It's got inside of the struct a reference to text
labels,
box.
text box, buffer. Yeah, that's like maybe we want to use this.
Yeah. So how is text box then rendered? Oh, it'd be good to render this. So I'm just gonna like
yeah, good point.
Go into this guy and do.
I remember it was a big grid of like
fonts.
It's like there were like sessions, and inside there was a fonts grid of runes.
Yeah, it'd be good to see what the editable label was referencing though. But yeah, let's look at the implementation of widget for T, and like what we can see here is like we have the events that are handled delegate the event to this text box. Interesting. So they just delegate the event to the event text box if they want to do input for the text box.
Nice.
And they delegate both an event mouse down. What does this mean? Anything. Any mouse down.
Yeah, it means don't care what the value is.
But interestingly, for this they do a begin CTX. And I wonder if that means like once you start drawing the label. Why does it need to begin?
What is begin?
Yeah, what is begin? Begin
there should be an import editable label.
Yeah, there is. An editable label is this this struct. So we have begin.
There's begin. Editing true buffer equals thing.
Ah, so they stored that state on their own. In order to do what though? Why do they need to set this boolean? But okay, they get the self.label. What's self.label? That's a label new text. So they actually use another widget. Because label is a widget from Druid. And they're creating a new with the text that that they're using this import. That's probably something that we'll need to use as well. Yeah, so like we want something like this where when this loads, we want to see what editable label is on the page. But
and this was called on mouse down.
Yes.
So I just had a red flag alert. This is not accessible. Not everyone can use a mouse. And I wonder how easy it is for this UI framework to enable accessibility controls.
You mean just keyboard without mouse?
Yeah, like tab focusing. Maybe tab focusing isn't part of this UI framework.
Ah, I see.
Anyway, yeah, that's just a side thing. Whenever I see a mouse down event doing something like functional, it's like.
But how does the accessibility stuff work with events in on
the web?
Yeah.
You do on click, and so whether you press enter or you click on it, like is an on click event. Click is not mouse down. Mouse down is a mouse down event.
Right.
So click just means the user has pushed this button in whatever way, whether that be through space or enter or click or touch.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they have an event on click that will delegate that as well.
Maybe. Yeah.
I mean, let's just, while this is compiling, go to the event. CTX. Can't go to these because... Why can't I go to these? Oh, because Druid's not part of this. Yeah, I'll have to go in here. Here we go.
So commands is probably the saving grace there.
Commands can be issued when the user triggers a menu item or an application level hotkey created dynamically by widgets at runtime.
Yeah, the fact that you can combine it to a hotkey is sort of keyboard accessibility.
Right, but how do you do the context switching of tabs to each element though?
Yeah, it doesn't cover tabbing.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if tabbing is a concept here.
I see.
It feels like no, and I think in native applications generally tabbing tends not to be there by default.
Wow, this is taking a while. All these little packages, some of which, do you know any of these? Just while we're looking at these.
Core Foundation Sys, I'm going to guess, is Mac.
There was a package which that guy that did the Rust, considering Rust package, talked about, Rayon. And that's allowing multi-threaded iterators.
I heard about that, yeah. There's Z Unicode.
Z Unicode?
XI-Unicode.
Okay.
XI, the text editor, so they're reusing that after that.
Yeah.
There's almost Dota, but it's DTOA. Hey, they're including Room Bender.
Yeah.
Or is that just the current project?
No, that's the current project. Yeah.
Okay.
Here we go. So.
Okay, so you just start off inside a rune, and you inside a font, and you see the grid of runes.
But what would be the editable label?
Good question.
Editable label. This is not that project, sorry. Editable label.
I'm usually going the other way around. I go from seeing a bit of UI to asking, like, where is this code?
Yeah. But
what is the code that implements this? But this is the opposite. We see code and we want to know how it gets used.
Exactly.
Actually, the way I do it, well, this isn't helpful here, but if there's code that I don't know how it gets invoked or used, I just make it crash and then run all the tests.
Okay.
And whichever test fails will show me exactly how to invoke it.
Right. I guess, like, given these events, we can panic when we click on-click down. So, like, in here, when we do the on-click mouse down, let's just panic.
I reckon we would see it before we click on it. We'd see something editable. It's probably like when you go into...
Well, we're not sure, because there's like the main view, and then there's like sub-views for like the inner font. Yeah, it's not clear. So if I click this...
I think you'd want to put panic on, like, maybe...
Didn't panic.
So
this is making the font using like Bezier curves and stuff. And then if I close this...
The XY, are they editable?
XY?
When you were editing the line?
No, that's the position.
Okay. That's unfortunate, because that would be something you want to, like, very finely
Oh,
fine-tuned edit.
it panicked when I went to edit. Okay.
Oh, you need to build the bug, which is going to be like way slower.
Right. Is this
So
not?
these numbers are editable?
Yeah, I think so. Let me get rid of the panic and then.
Panic that dog? Yeah, you're right. No, it had dog in there, so it hit that spot.
No, I know, but I just want to see it editable when I go there.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because
see it call begin and do the stuff.
yeah, like it wasn't clear that it was editable based on the UI.
Yeah, I agree. I guess it was. Yeah, it's using a regular text.
Yeah, there we go. That's exactly what we want.
And then on click it switches it out for the other one, I suppose.
Yeah. So we want exactly this, but in a grid. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we found
Sweet. Yeah.
We found exactly what we want. And essentially we could just implement a widget for the main for each thing. And so like if we go back to the original question of like how are we going to structure the app data though? The app state, because we want the user to decide the size, but I guess for now let's just make it fixed to 3x3 and then reuse the event label code to make the 3x3 an editable grid of numbers, and then later states can.
So we've seen this editing thing, or we've seen the event, but we still don't understand the data binding story.
Yeah, that's true. So if we go back to the editable label,
and I assume they're going to just use lenses.
So this is the label that gets modified, right? And we want to see dot label or something.
Who's creating this editable label? What's the container?
Yeah, let's have a look.
I think we want to see editable label new. There we go. Font info. Sidebar.
Interesting. So this font info returns an impl widget workspace. But we saw in the data section, workspace is a field in app state, and at some point it needs to return an impl widget app state, right? So,
but look at editable label glyph name.
Yeah.
I think the lens might transform the lens might transform the T. Because the with child must take a widget of workspace. It must be compatible. And if we take out the dot lens thing, I reckon it'll say, "Hey, it's mismatched type." So the lens must be like creating a different version of the label that somehow.
If you want to take the lens for it, I don't see editable label in this font info, which is weird.
No, it's calling glyph name label.
Oh, okay. Glyph name label. Oh, I see. And you're saying this lens into a simple. What's this simple font info though?
Good question.
And where is this? This is in data. And it's a struct that has a lens in there.
Why is it taking a lens of simple font info when it was built
Editable
on what was the
editable?
What was its T? It was like a glyph thing.
Font info.
Glyph name. It's not taking a glyph name lens. It's taking something else.
Well, you would think
family
that
name a glyph name.
Where's family name? Oh, this one.
That must be a glyph name for it to be compatible.
No, it's an arc string.
Oh my god. The types are so hard.
Yeah, like what's confusing to me is that in order for you to understand the impl the impl method that gets passed in to create the UI, you always return a widget T, and inside there you have a flex that gets returned, and potentially lenses, but the lenses have to be relative to the T that you're referencing. So if we look at data returns a workspace. What's a workspace? A workspace returns all this stuff. Okay, so the reason why editable label doesn't get referenced is because the actual data types are these things. Glyph name, simple font info is there. And simple font info is what is lensed on because we have it here. So it's lensed into the actual value. So that's how they get the value for the editable label. But this glyph name label is returning an editable label glyph name, and this is a widget. So I think it makes sense in that it's a widget that's templated on T. This should be a string, but we're giving it a
Yeah, that part's weird.
Yeah, some glyph name.
I mean, maybe it's an alias for string. What is glyph name?
Well, it's a struct which comes from NORAD, which I'm not sure what that is.
This I'm getting kind of lost. It's an empty struct. I'll be back. I gotta do a thing.
No worries.
I'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Yep. They don't implement lens. So lens I saw somewhere. Where was that? For data mod lenses. What? Interesting. And we have it in a mod. Where is this referenced? Data lenses. Good. Sidebar. Lenses. App state. So data has a mod for lenses, which has a mod app state, and inside here it has like almost equivalent to a separate file. It is equivalent to a separate file that has all of these and an implementation of lens. Lens on this TU for this editor state. Makes a land function. Mm. Let's have a look at this.
Okay, back.
Hello.
Meow, meow.
Something that I did notice, which was
Mhm.
quite interesting, is they define like a set of lenses for, I think, more complex things. So
They define lenses.
they have this pub mod lenses, which has a pub mod app state, and I think the lenses for the app state are defined here.
Is lenses a trait? Yeah.
Yeah. So for this lens implementation for workspace editor state,
Mm-hmm.
for this, so it's implementing it for editor state, which I'm not sure what that is at the moment. I think it's when you go into the font and you're able to create the glyph. This is essentially the lens for that. If you do like a search for lenses inside widget, you'll see that all of these lenses that they use reference the app state and some specific implementation. So in this case, it's like for the sidebar, it's getting the thing for selected glyph here. And that's specifically what they're using for the lens method. So it needs to return a lens implementation for this glyph name, and they defer it to this implementation here in this separate mod. Why the lens has a T and a U, I'm not sure. Is that the signature for lens? Is lens something that they implemented in their code? Like if I search for lens, is that here in Druid? Lens. Can I just control D?
Trait lens.
Trait
That's
lens.
alright.
Oh, in, out.
In, out.
Okay. So
whatever that means.
So if you were to read the lens code, it's saying take this and give me this for this. How is this constructed though in terms of like why is advance giving a F32? That needs to relate to the data, right? At some point this stuff is meant to be in the data, and we know that workspace is inside app state, and then it has all this stuff, which, you know, I assume if we just keep following the trail, we can find like selected glyph in this case is what? Selected glyph is some struct that says workspace to glyph plus. Yeah. So going back to this workspace, there must be a glyph plus in here. There isn't. What? What's a glyph plus?
You know these debugging strategies of like crashing just to see a stack trace, or GDB so you can see the values of local variables. I feel like more and more as a type system gets very complex and capable and powerful, but complex, you want the same thing but the compiler and not the runtime. You want to be able to see the value of a type reference or something, like which type is this talking about, what function is this name referring to, what did it evaluate to in the compiler, and stack traces of like how did you come to be compiling this. Just there's so much going on in the compile step with all this type stuff, like matching this to that to that to that to that, that when things go wrong or you don't understand how it all works, you want tools to be able to show you what's going on. I really want this sort of stack trace of the compile step, not at the runtime.
Yeah, so you can mark things to say compile to this point and then sort of make the compiler
show
stop
me
there.
What you're thinking, what you think this T is, what you think that function name refers to.
And yeah, if you have like some strategy at the compile step, I would like something like GDB where you can step through, but also step back and see both sides, of the equation.
I it's like I want dev tools for the compiler. I want dev tools more for my language.
So what do we think? Like, should we just look at editable label and focus on that? Because that seems to use...
So my question is, we saw all this lens stuff, but like, which one of them is actually being invoked? Which one is happening here?
Well, that depends on where it's used, right? Like, we can actually see where that is happening, because it's explicitly called in the code under lens. So you can see here, specifically in the sidebar, which I'm not even sure. What's the sidebar? Is it this thing? Is that the sidebar, you reckon? Like,
I think it's that sidebar.
This thing?
Does it have editable labels?
Oh yeah, it does.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Oh, so this is a good one to specifically look at, because it's naming a label here. And we can see label, editable label. And like, it's got this like blank spot here, and then it's got this, which I assume is the sidebar, just this bit. Because it starts off with the editable label, and then it's got it's got a lens into that name. So I assume that this name refers to this app state glyph name. Which is a struct. Glyph plus. What is this glyph plus? No rad. I guess we could just see like print line here. And we should see the code invoke that when we try and modify the... What?
What? What happened?
I think I added a W.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I gotta go in 10 minutes.
Yeah, no worries. Oh my god, what?
What?
I think that's just a Sublime text error.
Might be out of date.
Yeah, so if we modify this, hey, it's just constantly
Dog.
and it stopped.
It's constantly
Yeah.
recreating these UI elements.
Well, where I specifically put that in was the lens, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. Whereas if we just start it, it's not doing that until you start modifying the sidebar.
Mhm.
And we can see that it's now that we have that, we should probably check that it's actually getting that name through the glyph. So if we go back to the data,
So something I'm confused about here. So it's printing dog a lot. Where was the call site?
that's a good point. I'll panic and show where it is, but let me just do this first.
Panic after.
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
Huh? Why doesn't it like this? Oh.
Why doesn't it like?
Oh, maybe it was just being dumb.
I remember when my grade 4 teacher would use the word calculator.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes you get the wrong answer and it was like the calculator was on crack. And now I think like, oh, no one would be allowed to use that kind of terminology anymore in that primary school setting.
Lol. Okay, so we got the name B.
Mhm.
After this, we get the lens. Yeah, so
Life cycle.
Life cycle
Coming
calls
from-
lens. So we're here. We then call this guy self.lens.
For lens wrap.
Where's lens wrap?
We're in the import for lens wrap.
Oh,
lens
okay.
wrap is a widget.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So,
And I have a feeling that this is the thing that I was wondering about. Where when you give, when you lens a widget, you transform its T. Maybe.
so how does this go to lens wrap? It's pretty.
Well, let's look at the definition of lens. In that, not that lens, but the editable text had a lens method. Where was that coming from? Editable label. So they were doing .lens, and I feel like that would cause lens wrapping. Kind of, does it make sense?
It's not in here actually.
No, the call of .lens was in the use of it in the font info.
Yeah.
Yeah, they call .lens. So yeah. Macro rules lens.
What the?
Create lens field new.
Huh?
What's that? What's a
wait.
lens field new?
I've already got confused because it's going to a macro rule. What the hell's
Well, they must have derived lens,
that? Uh-huh.
which presumably does this. Maybe. Do they derive lens?
I believe so. So I want to see it for simple font info, right? And I think it does. Yeah. Yeah, it does. So so this
the method lens was on editable label. Does that derive anything?
No, it wasn't.
How did the editable label
it is,
get
sorry, you're right.
the lens method?
Editable label. How does it get the lens method? Maybe a widget has it?
Is there lens in here?
No. It must
Wow.
inherit it from like widget
Do
or
widgets
something.
have lens?
Yeah. I need to go back.
See, this is where I want the compile time debugging. Is like, what? How did this lens get here?
Yeah. So we need to find it in the actual Druid code. So let's just go Control F. We want to see like FN lens, right?
Yeah.
FN lens. Maybe I'll just do it like this.
Oh yeah.
Pubmod lens. There's that macro rule. That's
Widget X. Widget X. I remember that's where it does the whole like the parse.
Right.
Lens wrap.
So the lens method returns a lens wrap. Okay. And that takes a new. Where is this? This is in widget extension. So how do you go from widget to widget extension?
That's a good question.
Because it's returning.
Does it have a generic impl for everything that's a widget? At the bottom, maybe is there an impl? Impl for W. Holy shit. What the fuck?
This is hard to read.
Which is a parameter. Oh my god. What the fuck?
So it's saying there are two generics that have to be of widget T and data.
Oh, this is the same as into. Into does the same thing. Where T implements from.
Yep.
And then it's implement into for T. It's the same deal. So anything that's a widget plus static, it has this impl. Crazy. This is what you want.
But it's so nested that you don't.
Tools.
Exactly, because it's so nested that somehow
you have to hunt for this.
Yeah.
It's so hard to find.
But
when like the compiler knows it, obviously.
Yeah.
You could just tell us.
But is this correct to say that every widget that we implement has a lens function because of this?
Yes. All of these functions, like boxed and everything. Yeah. It's like inheritance, but different.
Yeah, and it makes sense that it's under widget extensions. Because it's like, here's what provides extra methods for combining widgets. Yeah. Alright, I think this is a good place to stop.
Yeah, I agree. We're getting really hairy into this. But this is like full on Rust. This is full on like using Rust types and everything. We are into the deep weeds now.
Yep. And you know.
So I'm glad we can work things out still.
And we have things to show, you know. As in, like,
we still haven't drawn anything.
No.
We still haven't made anything.
That's okay. We can leave that.
But this is the learning curve until we